Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 16 and compare it against the iPhone 7 and see which particular device is better for you. Now, I could probably say in almost every single way I can imagine, the iPhone 16 is a way better device than the iPhone 7. There really isn't any area where I look at the 7 and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a way better device. It's not really anything I can see here, right? The iPhone 16 is going to be better, but it's also going to be more expensive. In fact, the only area I can think where the 7 may have an edge is the price tag, but because the 7 is like so old now, it is like 7 years old or something, or 8 years old, or I don't even know, I would probably say in a lot of ways, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go and buy a device like that, but I would say for the iPhone 16, you don't have to just jump between these two. There's a lot of phones in between that you can also pick up as well. So we'll take a look at those throughout this whole entire video. If you want to pick up any of these phones that I recommend throughout this video for the cheapest prices I find, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both, the iPhone 7, which came out back in 2015, I think, or 2016, so it was 8 years now. On the front of this phone, you're getting a 4.7-inch Retina IPS panel on it, and it is a pretty basic type of panel when it comes down to it. When it first came out, I would say even when it first came out in 2016, it was okay, but like by that point we had a lot of devices with AMOLED and OLED devices, so I'm not really too sure what they could have done there, but they should have done probably a better job at that point. But it's still an okay panel. You're getting pretty big bezels on it, getting the whole punch display. There's not really anything on this display that I look at and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a really good thing that's held up so well. Maybe the body itself still feels premium, but a device like this, it just definitely feels like it's a little bit of a more outdated device when it comes down to it. With something like the iPhone 16, on the other hand, this is one of those devices that I think definitely looks so much better. So this one, you're getting a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. So this type of panel on the iPhone 16 is better in almost every single way you can imagine. So it's a bigger panel, it's a brighter panel, it looks nicer, and it's an OLED display. Those things are very, very important to have inside of these types of devices, and I love having those types of things on these types of phones. So I would say for sure from that side, the iPhone 16 holds up very, very well from that particular perspective than the iPhone 7 for sure. Now the sides of the iPhone 16 are basically flat, which is always nice to have. I love having flat sides and you're basically getting that on the 16. The 7 is curved, but the 7 has a Lightning port on the bottom, where the iPhone 16 has a USB Type-C port. Now, Lightning back in 2016 was fine, it was okay, but having a USB Type-C port in this day and age is important because every single port is basically USB-C. All of Apple's accessories nowadays are USB-C, so it is really nice to basically have this type of newer type of capability on the iPhone 16. And that is something I love having. And if I'm going to go through and like get a device, I genuinely love having that type of capability. So this in and of itself is really nice and I love having it for sure. So that in and of itself speaks mountains to me, and that's something I love seeing on the iPhone 16. The iPhone 7 is still good and everything, but definitely the 16 is great. On the backside, you're getting a frosted glass back on the iPhone 16. The 7, you're getting a standard aluminum back, single camera on the iPhone 7, dual camera setup on the iPhone 16. Now, between both, you're going to have to remember, the iPhone 7 lacks a lot of stuff the 16 has. Number 1, it doesn't have USB-C. Number 2, no wireless charging on that phone, no reverse wired charging on the iPhone 7. You're also missing out on things like MagSafe capability, no camera button, no action button. I mean, there's a lot of things that basically come when you go through and buy something like an iPhone 16. Even like a gesture-based design, like you don't have that on the iPhone 7 because you have to click the home button over and over again. So those are just one of those things to keep in mind. So in my personal opinion, the iPhone 16 definitely wins in almost every single way you can imagine from that particular perspective. Now, when it comes down to the camera side of things, this is a big difference. So the iPhone 7 has a single 12 megapixel camera on the back. The iPhone 16 has a dual camera setup, a wide and ultra wide camera. Now, the zooming in, zooming out, let's start there. The iPhone 7 has 1x zoom. The iPhone 16 has 0.5x, 1x, and 2x zoom. So not only can you zoom in way more on the iPhone 16, you can also zoom out with that ultra-wide camera. So that's also a super nice thing to have. On top of that, another very big thing here is basically the capability. So you're getting 4K at 60 on the front to the back of the iPhone 16. The 7 doesn't have that resolution you can film in. On top of that, you basically have, super high resolution photos, next generation portraits with focus and depth of control. The iPhone 7 doesn't even have, portrait mode. You have macro photography, you have 4K at 60 like we mentioned, spatial photos and videos, you're getting cinematic mode inside of the iPhone 16. That is just a way better device in every single way you can imagine. And personally for me, if I'm going to go through and pick up a phone, I need to have a phone that's going to be giving me like a better type of camera. And the iPhone 16 is basically going to be giving you that. So once again, take it as you will, But if I'm going to go through and like pick up one of these types of devices, it pretty much has to be something like an iPhone, 16. That is going to be the way better device here in every single way I can imagine. So that's the one that I look at as being the far more superior one here in this particular case as well. Now, on top of that, another very big thing to keep in mind here is software longevity. Now, as we mentioned before, this is kind of the problem that we're kind of experiencing with the iPhone 7, right? Because this phone has already been outdated on the iPhone 7 for so long now. It's been a couple of years since this phone has even gotten a software update. So once again, that's kind of a bad thing going on for that type of device. Like, why pick up something like an iPhone 7? That phone is already going to be outdated with software. It doesn't make any sense at all to buy a phone like that. Whereas on the iPhone 16, that type of device is just getting started with software updates. Like, that phone is going to be here for so many years to come. If you're going to go through and pick up a device, I would highly recommend buying something like an iPhone 16 because this one is going to be lasting for a much longer period of time than the iPhone 7. Same thing could be said with the iPhone 15, 14, 13. Those types of phones are still going to be supported with software as well, but the 16 here is going to be a much longer lasting phone from that particular perspective as well. Even from battery life, the iPhone 16 is giving you 22 hours of video playback. The iPhone 7 was stated when it first came out to give you 13 hours, but I don't even think that's the case. Like, there's no way you're getting 13 hours from an iPhone 7 anymore. So that is in and of itself another very important thing to keep in mind here. If you're going to go through and like pick up a phone, once again, something like the iPhone 16 is going to be the one that's going to be the better one here for sure as well. Finally, when it comes down to the performance side, a phone, like I mentioned before, like the iPhone 16, is going to be a way faster one. Apple A18 chip with 8 gigabytes of RAM. The iPhone 7 basically had that Apple A9 chip inside of it, or A10 Fusion chip inside of it. So it had the Apple A10 Fusion chip inside with 2 gigabytes of RAM. So once again, this is one of those areas where you look at, and I will tell you in every single way the iPhone 16 is better. I would say the only way the iPhone 7 might be a little better is like, from a price, I don't even think from a price per dollar. Like, let's say the iPhone 7 costs $100. There's just no way the iPhone 7 is a good price device, right? Like, for even a performance perspective, it's already outdated with software. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense here. And I don't think it's a good performing device. Where the iPhone 16, significantly better, still performs very, well. It's only been like 2 months, since it came out. It's building on top of all the other newer phones, and you're getting things like Apple Intelligence and so many other features like that. And that's why I look at it as probably being a more superior phone for the most part. So overall, to kind of sum up this whole entire video, I genuinely do think a phone like an iPhone 16 is so much better than the iPhone 7, but I think we all probably already know that. I think a big thing to keep in mind here is that with a device like an iPhone 16, when you're going to go through and pick up that type of phone, you're going to have to remember that with something like a 16, this is one of those devices that's probably going to be the better one for the next couple of years. But on top of that, if you don't want to spend all the money on a 16, you can also buy something like an iPhone 15, iPhone 14, iPhone 13, iPhone 12. You can also buy one of those devices, and that is probably also going to be a really good device to pick up as well. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there for the most part. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that will mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.